You've been lied to about the impact of your art. We've been told that changing the world requires scale, that it requires millions of dollars and millions of followers and access that most of us will never have. And so we create our art and make music and we write convinced that if our work doesn't reach everyone, then it means that it reaches no one. But that's not how change actually works. That's not even how art has ever worked. If you give me a few minutes, I will explain how you can change the world with your art in two simple but profound steps. And once you understand this concept, you will see how even if just one person is impacted by this video, I will change the world. Because that's just how impact works. That's the secret they don't tell you. So, the first step to changing the world is you have to introduce things to it that didn't exist before. And yeah, I know it's that simple, yes, but it's also that terrifying. To change the world, you have to create something, a book, a painting, a song, a photograph, a poem, just something. But the key is that that something that you make, it acts as a container for an idea, a container, a shell holding an idea. And that's all art has ever been. It's been just a vehicle, a vessel, a way to smuggle truth into someone's life when they weren't expecting it. And so your truth, your message, it's the seed that's intended to change them. You see, when you create, your goal should not be to change the world. It should be to change someone's world, their perspective, their reality, their beliefs. And the more powerful the idea, the more powerful your impact. It's not how beautifully you executed it or how polished you produced it. Because you can have the most technically perfect piece of art. And if it says nothing, it changes nothing. So your idea must be remarkable, a remarkable idea. And I mean that literally, like remark means to say something, to comment, to mention it. So the idea that's infused into your work has to be so clear, so memorable, and so practical that people who are moved by it will talk about it. They'll share it. They'll embody it. They'll carry it with them. You know, think about the art that changed you, the song that made you see your life differently, or the book that arrived at the exact moment that you needed it, or the painting that made you feel less alone. Those pieces didn't just exist, they said something, something that you needed to hear, something that you couldn't unhear. And that's what you're trying to do. You're not trying to be everywhere. You're trying to be unforgettable to someone. You're trying to plant an idea so deep into someone's chest that it grows there, that it changes how they see themselves, how they see others, how they see the world, and how they move through the world. And look, art doesn't operate on scale, it operates on resonance. You don't need to reach a million people. You just need to reach the right person at the right time with the right truth. And when that happens, when your idea lands in fertile soil, it doesn't just sit there. It grows and it spreads and it becomes part of how they understand the world. So, step one is to create, to stop waiting for permission or perfect conditions or the right strategy, to stop asking if anyone will care and just start asking what you need to say. The idea, because the world needs your truth. It needs your specific way of seeing things, your specific language, your specific angle on what it means to be alive right now. And through that lens, you can create something that didn't exist before, infused with an idea that will resonate with others. An idea so clear that someone can hold it, and memorable enough that they can't forget it, and practical enough that it changes how they live. That's step one. And next, there's another step that's required to change the world. And this is where most artists stop. This is where the resistance kicks in. This is, where we convince ourselves that creating is enough, that if the work is good, it'll somehow magically find its audience. But no, innovation is creating plus sharing. Not creation plus perfection, not creation plus waiting for the right moment. It's creation plus sharing. So the second simple step is one that so many artists face resistance when it's time. You must share what you create so they can influence. Because a painting that stays in your studio changes nothing. A song that never leaves your laptop moves nobody. Or a manuscript that's locked away in your drawer changes no one. And I get it. Like, sharing feels vulnerable. It feels like you're asking for something, like you're imposing. It's almost like you're one of those people who is always just promoting themselves, always in your face, always performing. But that's not what sharing is. Sharing is an act of generosity. It's saying that I made this thing that means so much to me, and maybe it'll mean something to you. It's giving someone the chance to be changed by what you created. And if you don't share it, you're denying them the opportunity. You know, there's a quote that I love that says that change happens slowly and then all at once. And I love it because it's just so true. You post your work and nothing happens. You share it again and you probably hear some crickets. You put it out there for the 10th, for the 20th, and 100th time, and you start to think maybe I was wrong. You know, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe no one actually cares. But when it comes to art, change is silent, it's invisible. You can't see it happening in real time, but tiny influences ripple into massive change. And let me show you why this works. Why creating something deeply and simply sharing it is actually enough to change the world. Because I think that this is the part that actually nobody teaches. This is the part that I think flips everything upside down. It's what I call the law of influence. And once you understand it, you will never underestimate your art again. Here's what's actually happening when someone experiences your work. I mean, like, really experiences it, not scrolls past it, not double taps it, but stops, feels something, and carries it with them. Let's say someone sees your painting. Maybe it's in a gallery, maybe it's online, doesn't matter. They look at it and something shifts. Maybe it's not dramatic, like they don't fall on their knees and have some revelation, but maybe it's quieter than that, no more subtle. They just breathe differently for a moment. Something loosens in their chest, and a permission they didn't know they needed suddenly appears. You know, Maybe your painting reminds them of someone they used to be or who they could become. Maybe it makes them feel less alone in whatever private war they're fighting. Maybe it just makes them realize that beauty still exists, that softness is still possible, that feeling deeply isn't something to be ashamed of, regardless of how it touched them. It did touch them. And then they walked away. And no, they didn't post about it. They didn't tag you. They might not even remember your name, but they carry something new inside of them now. a tiny recalibration, a slight shift in how they see themselves or the world. But that slight shift is where it gets interesting. Because that slight shift is where your art becomes something bigger than you ever imagined. Because that person doesn't exist in some vacuum. None of us do. Like, they go home to a partner, they show up at work, they interact with their kids, they post something online, they have a conversation with a friend, or even strangers that they pass on the street. And every single one of those interactions, they're different now. Not massively, not obviously, but they're still different. Maybe they listen a little deeper in that conversation, or maybe they're a little softer with their kid that night. Maybe they finally say the thing that they've been afraid to say. Maybe they encourage someone who needed it, or maybe they create something themselves because you reminded them that they could. Look, they never mention the painting, but their behavior changed because of it. You see, we think influence is about convincing people to think like us or do what we do. But real influence is behavior, it's energy, it's presence. It's the invisible current that moves between humans when they're just like living. And when you influence one person, you, you don't influence one human. You influence a network of networks. That's the math that nobody talks about. They say every adult that you know and interact with, they also interact somewhere between 15 and 150 people in a typical week, from close friends and coworkers and family, acquaintances, random strangers, and even those random offline impressions that land deeper than we realize. Not every interaction matters, of course, most don't, but let's say even a small amount of those moments carry influence. You're looking at something exponential here. Let's say your painting touches one person deeply, and the way it influenced that person, it touches five others in meaningful ways throughout the week. Just five. And then those five each touch five more. That's 25 people. And then those 25 touch five more. That's 125. That 125, five more. That's 625 people. And then over 3,000 people. And then over 15,000 people. 15,000 all walking around carrying some invisible thread back to the moment that you decided to create something. Every single one of those people carry that energy forward. They model it. Others feel it and mirror it, not even knowing why. And by the time your influence has moved through 5 layers of human contact, you've shaped the inner world of thousands of people, and you'll never know their names. You'll never get credit. There's no notification for this, no metric, no proof, but it's real. It's the most real thing that's happening. This is what I call the law of influence. One artistic interaction impacting unlimited lives. This is one of the reasons I make these videos. If I can show you that your creative potential is massive, that you could bring your best ideas to life, your ideas will go on to influence people in ways that I will never know. And then that not knowing, I have peace because I understand how creation works. I don't need to know how this video will change the world, but I do know that it will change the world if I change yours. And if you're someone who feels this truth is in your bones, who feels that pull to create, to express, to become more of who you are, then I want to invite you to something that exists for that exact reason. It's called World of Creatives. It's a community that I built for artists, writers, musicians, thinkers, and makers who don't just want to create things, they want to create impact, not through virality, not through algorithms, but through depth, through resonance, through real connection with other humans who are on the same path. Inside the world of creatives, we grow together. We make things, we share them, we learn from each other, and we push each other forward, not with judgment, but with presence. It's the kind of place that I wish I had when I was starting out on my creative journey. So, if you are looking for a creative family, a place to bring your best ideas to life, a place where your art is taken seriously because you are taken seriously, then consider this your invitation. I'll leave a link below to apply. So if what I'm saying resonates, you know whether it's for you. You see, I built this community to enable creators just like you to impact the world. Because when you create, you're not just spreading art, you're spreading ways of being. And most influence isn't spoken, it's not credited, it's felt. It moves through our subconscious, you know? It's through our micro behaviors, through the way someone shows up after they've been changed by something beautiful. So when you create something, you're not just changing the person who sees it, you're changing how that person changes others. One painting, one song, one poem, one moment of truth you decided to express, that becomes a living network of influence spreading through the world right now. And the tragedy is that most artists never know this. They create something beautiful and they spend years wondering if it mattered, checking the numbers, measuring the engagement, comparing themselves to people with bigger platforms. I see them convincing themselves every single day that unless it goes viral, it doesn't land. But virality is just visibility. Impact is invisible. The most powerful art doesn't need to be seen by millions. It just needs to be felt by one person deeply enough that it changes how they move through the world. Because that person is connected to everyone else. We all are. That's the beauty and the burden of being human, being an artist. We're constantly shaping each other for better or for worse. So your art, the thing that you made in your bedroom, in your studio, on your kitchen table, the thing that you posted and nobody seemed to notice is out there right now, living in someone, changing how they breathe, how they see, how they show up. And they're spreading it without knowing, without trying, just by being alive and connected to other people who are alive and connected to other people. This is what art was always supposed to do. Not perform, not sell, not go viral, but to penetrate, land, root, grow, and move through the human network like a current. And if you're sitting there thinking that your work doesn't matter because it hasn't reached enough people, you're measuring the wrong thing. You're asking the wrong question. The question isn't how many people saw this. The question is, did it change anyone? Because if it changed one person, even slightly, even quietly, even in a way that they can't explain, then it's already moving through thousands. You don't need a bigger platform. You don't need more followers. You don't need validation from the algorithm. You just need to keep creating, keep painting, and keep planting seeds. Keep trusting that the people who need what you make will find it. And that when they do, they'll carry it into every room that they enter for the rest of their lives. That's how art changes the world, not through scale, through depth, not through reach, through resonance, not through visibility, to the invisible network of humans shaping humans, shaping humans. Your art has already changed the world. You just don't get to see it. And maybe that's exactly how it should be. Because the most powerful things we do are the ones we never get credit for. The ones that move through the world without our name attached. The ones that become part of the fabric of how people live. So keep making, keep feeling, keep expressing, not because it might change the world someday, but because it already is.